great thing that they do, and they meet and they help families deal with living with someone or knowing someone that has substance use disorder or alcohol use disorder. It is a great program because they don't just focus on the person that they focus on the family as well, so there won't be no codependency. Because there are some people that I encounter today that, like, the mom keeps the person actively using because she's dependent on their chaos.
Right.
And I'm glad that my mom was strong enough not to do that, because I would be dead right now. I have no doubt about it. When I went to that treatment center that day, I was done no matter what. I had gotten to that point to where, like, I mean, the weird thing about my addiction story is there were many times that I wanted to die. And there were many ways I could have done it. But there was just something in the back of my mind that just kept telling me, you know, something great is going to happen. You just got to make it through the day. And I'm not talking about an aha moment. I mean, I just would always constantly think about death, but it was like, I would always say, well, what'll happen to my dog if I do this? You know, he's going to die too, you know. And I think that's why dog spelled backwards is God, because they give you that unconditional love. Like, you can be so mad at your dog and you know, you're a bad boy, and then he just comes up to you and just loves on you. And it's like you just shredded your dog, and he just wants to love you. And I'd be like, I think God's the same way. Like, he's there to love you, but free will that he gave us is something that sometimes we turn our back. And I did that. Like, I would never go to church. Like, I had a problem with God for so long. And I kept myself from knowing this person. And I kept myself from being loved by this person. And the love that I get right now and the gifts that I'm able to give to other people are just, like, I don't need a reward. Like, that's it, you know? Like, I don't charge for my services. I just want you to live your best life. And anything I can do to help you along the way, you got it. Let's just figure it out, you know?
And this is something that I think about a lot. I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. I believe in God. And earlier you were talking about your moment in the park, but you also said, you know, at that Christmas when you're like, God, why? God, why? Well, if he was going to answer you, he was going to tell you, well, this is why. You had to go through this so you could help somebody else.
I absolutely believe that.
And I think people make a mistake too, and I know I sure did, and I was right there with you going, why, God, why? How many times am I going to have to drink? You know, why can't I just stop? And then it got to a point where I asked God for what I wanted. And I remember it, and I was in jail, and it reminded me of the story you told when you were in the park. And I said, God, show me. You have a purpose for me, Lord. Like, show me what it is. You know, I'm sitting there in jail in a Bam Bam suit and in a room by myself. They only give me 12 squares of toilet paper, but we'll talk about that story when we do.
Dude, you got to ask for a razor. Like you never know how much your freedoms are taken away until you got to knock on glass. Like, can I get a roll of toilet paper, Depp? You know what I mean? It's like, you know, let's figure this out.
Yeah,
but
12 little single ply squares. But, you know, I'm not bitter.
Yeah.
But when I was there though, and I had time to sit there and I prayed and I actually asked God. And I think that was the first time I really asked him for anything, except for when I was like, I don't know, 14. I'm like, Lord, please let so-and-so like me, you know. And,
right. I remember that.
Yeah, and she never did.
Please.
That was damn Satan's fault.
Right.
Oh, no, that was God going, no, not her.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
her. Nope.
She'll make you buy tampons.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, try doing that. If you're struggling, having a hard time, or you know somebody who is, you know, ask them, have you asked God? And my mom used to tell me that too. Have you asked God? And I'm like, stop it with that, you know.
Right.
And so you might get that reaction from somebody, but seriously, asking for God or asking something from God, I think is a great way to get something from God, you know. And a lot of people will blame God. Well, God did this, and nobody ever blames the devil, you know. Like,
right.
But
you know, when He gave us free will, that was a gift. You know, I've asked God for many things, and what I find is, most of the time I get them, just not in my time.
And not even how you could imagine they'd happen.
Right. It just happens. And you're like, I asked for that like 10 years ago. Like, thanks, man. You know? But it's like He puts you in the position to where you can extract the most you can from it at that time. Like, I remember like begging Him to kill me. Like, please. Mm-hmm. But it's like, like we've helped like 52 people get inpatient or outpatient, and if I was dead, I wouldn't have been able to touch their lives. I wouldn't have been so grateful that they chose me to be part of their journey, and at the center of it, being grateful for what you have and not what you don't is the key to happiness. And it's a hard road because like envy, like I'd be like, oh man, I wish I had that car. Well, his mom probably bought him that car or whatever. You know what I mean? But there are people out there that work hard and buy things for themselves, and once you learn that, you know, you realize that, man, like I'm grateful to have a house. I'm grateful to have food. Like my car's not the best, but I'm grateful that it runs, you know? And it's like, it takes away a lot of that internal struggle that causes you to go back to using. Mm-hmm. You have to be grateful for what you have. And I know somebody's listening to this right now and it's like, well, that's bullcrap, because that's what I would have said, you know? Mm-hmm. But it's the truth, and it doesn't come right away. That's your reward for surrendering to recovery, is they help you find a new life that you just can't believe you could live, you know? Like I would never have been able to meet you, you know, like me and Marnie have been in classes together. She's awesome, you know? And it's like all the people that I've encountered on this journey has helped me. And like sometimes when I'm helping somebody, I become the student and they don't even know it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like some of the things that they say, I'm like, well, you know, why didn't I think of that? Like, that's a smart way, you know, to actually go about it. And that's the best thing about recovery is sometimes, you know, the people that are teaching you, sometimes you say something that's like, wow, you know, like that's an amazing way to think about it. And sometimes you're the student and you have to be open to that give and take, because you miss out on some very good people if you're closed-minded. And for years, I pushed away some of my best friends, some of the people that I called brothers, because I would steal from them, or I would just tell them I'd be at their house and just never call, you know? Like, oh, you know, my phone was down or whatever. And like after 7 or 8 times, I started to get really upset. And it's like, listen, you know, quit giving me crap. And then all of a sudden they stop calling. And then you reach out and now you're the one getting the voicemail. How does it feel? Because that's what you were doing to them, mm-hmm. you know? And like I said, some bridges need to be burned for you to learn that you can't treat people that way and expect them to hang out with you, expect them to love you, because a friendship, a brotherhood is always about give and take, you know? Integrity is a huge part of recovery, because sometimes you're alone and you may have a beer in your fridge, you know? Well, nobody's around. Do I drink it? You know? I don't know. Do you? Is that really what you want? Or, hey, you know, like I had a recovery call me to his house and he drops a bag of pills in my hand. And that was the first time I had been around him in so long. And I'm talking to him and I look down and my hand is literally shaking. So I'm like, why don't we go to the bathroom and I'll dump, you flush? Because he wanted me to do it. And I'm like, listen. And as I'm talking to him, like he looks at me and like I didn't even realize that my hand was shaking. So it's like we dumped him, and I took him that day to the bear. And it was like that was before everything hit. But like that was a 3-week process of talking to him as a friend, you know, bringing up recovery, sometimes just listening to him vent, you know. Then he called me. He goes, you know what, I'm ready to go, but I need your help. Can you come over? And he was on, and I didn't want to travel with him in my car. It probably wasn't the best way to dispose of him, but at the moment, it was what we had, because we get pulled over and I got an open bag in my car. It's my car and this guy's pretty dope. I mean, like imagine, you know, the repercussions, but I know because people are going to be like, well, that's not the best way to do it. I get it. Trust me. But at the time, I didn't want to be around them for sure. And I didn't want him to be around them. And at that process, he was like, all right, what do I need? I go, 7 days worth of clothes, shower shoes, bring some sheets, pillow, you know, grab a snack. I don't know. Let's just go. You know, and I called, you know, on the way and they let him in. And like, I miss being able to do that because I feel like we're losing a lot of people because of the wait. And that's why, you know, there needs to be more treatment centers. There needs to be more recovery housing out there. This is an issue that's not just statewide. I mean, in 2018, there was 176 people die a day. In 2020, it's 190. That's almost 70,000 people a year that have moms and dads and has sons and daughters, you know, wives and husbands that don't need to die And it's sad because I know if they reached out to you, if they reached out to me, if they reached out, to like people in my organization, like we could have helped them. And this is why I use these platforms to be like, find me. You know what I mean? Like, I will leave a card with Corey if you're one of Corey's friends, if you're a friend of a friend. I don't care about your past. I want to help you find a better future. But it starts with a conversation that you may not like. But at the end result, I promise you, you're going to live a happier life that you never thought you could live.
With goals and dreams that you can actually accomplish. And it's not a bad thing to need help.
No.
That's what I try to do with the podcast, is just let people know, look, I was ashamed, I was afraid, and you don't have to do that. You don't have to. It's 2020.
Like, those feelings are normal for what you're going through. As abnormal as it feels, that's the process that a lot of people go through. And I know it makes you feel like you're on your own island, but there's 24 million people that are going through it like you, and that may be able to help you go through it. 25 million people in recovery, that's a lot of people that care. That's a lot of people, that's a lot of miracles. Like, that's how I look at recovery, because to be able to pull yourself out, there has to be a divine intervention. Like, that's why one of the steps is believing in a higher power. Like, some people have a problem with that, and that's okay, in my opinion, I know for a fact that I wouldn't have able to have been clean and sober or been able to assist people, being a resource, without my Lord. And I'm so grateful that he chose to love me, even though I didn't love myself, and that's tough when you just don't value yourself. And I remember that, and it's not fun. It's probably one of the worst things, like when you're talking negative to yourself and then you believe it. And like, for the longest time, I thought I was worthless, man. Like, I thought that I was a burden on everybody that I encountered, and the best thing for me to do is just to exit. But like, now I'm a resource for them. Like, people that I used to lie to that are just so proud of me, like, hey, I've got this person. How would you handle it? And it's like, you're asking me for help? So sometimes I'm like, people really want to hear my story. You know what I mean? It's like, like, how am I special? And it's like, it's not that you're special, but like, everybody has a story, and your stories can affect other people in a way to where, like, maybe that's what it took to get them to take that first step. But if you didn't share your story, maybe that person would never do that. And it's like, everybody in recovery has their own story. Feel free to tell yours. Like, I will listen. Corey will listen. Like, there's millions of people out there that will just take the time to just hear you and really hear you. You don't have to teach us how to take care of you. We know how. And that was the hardest part for me, is like, really having to explain what I'm going through, and nobody understood it. Like, well, just stop. I don't know what to tell you, Eric. And that would make me so angry. It's like, well, duh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Or it's a choice. You're the one that opens your mouth and puts the pills in. And it's like, that made me feel worse, because at the time I believed that, But maybe in the beginning, granted, maybe drinking that beer or taking the pill, in the beginning, yes, it may be a choice. However, once a while goes by, it is no longer a choice.
Once addiction grabs you, you're got.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if it's heroin, meth, alcohol, oxy. It doesn't matter.
Nope.
When addiction got you, it got you.
It doesn't discriminate.
And that's when you need to. When there's a point when everybody does realize, oh shit, I'm in too deep.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the time you ask God for help. Maybe that's the time you start writing down your list of what you want in the future.
Right.
And, go get help, go get treatment. It starts there. And think about the future. I had a guy the other day say something to me. He was in treatment, and he's like, well, I don't have a future. And I said, well, that is not good. That's not good, bro. Like, how about we plan one? You have kids? He's like, oh, yeah, I'm like, you're going to have grandkids then.
Right.
Don't you want to be the best granddad ever?
Yeah.
There is a future for you. Let's plan for it, And he kind of changed his tune a little bit, and when he left treatment,